If we do, but we're not going to do it in 6 months. And let me just tell you, this whole controversy over whether there should be some short-term relief in fuel prices invokes one of Clinton's laws of politics. I have a lot of them. Some of them kind of funny. Like, if someone tells you it's nothing personal, take a deep breath, they're fixing to stick it to you. But here's one. When someone tells you it's not a money problem, they are never talking about their own problem. So nobody has jumped on her who's having trouble filling up their gas tank and choosing between gasoline and food. Now, what would be a panic is if she were to come here or send me here and say, vote for me and I'll lower the price of oil, because nobody can do that. The price of oil is going up for a simple reason. There's a limited amount of it, and more people in the world can afford to buy it. So they're bidding up the price. So the answer in the long term is for you to get in higher mileage vehicles. Maybe eventually we won't need it at all to get around. I've been in every hydrogen car, I think, made in America. And I hope you can get them someday. They're safe now and they're comfortable, but the cheapest one's $250,000. Most of us couldn't buy that. But there are other options. She wants to have the federal government share the cost with Detroit of rapidly increasing the production of higher mileage vehicles at affordable prices. And not just small cars, but SUVs. I drive a hybrid SUV. It gets about 40 miles in town, 30 on the highway. We've got to have higher mileage pickups. We've got to have higher mileage semis. We have got to get around with less oil. And it's really helping to get American jobs going, producing those things for you to buy. And the third thing she wants to do is to get you in a really high mileage vehicle as quickly as possible. And I want you all to listen to this, because this is just one example. A couple of months ago, Hillary was somewhere campaigning. She called me and she said, Bill, I just met a guy who swears he's driving a car that gets 100 miles an hour. She said, I sure would like to talk about that, but I don't want to be embarrassed. So you call him and find out if he's telling the truth. Because I grew up in the car business and I love all this stuff. So anyway, I call this fella and he sends me the specs of the car. I read it and we talk. Here's the deal. He's one of 50 Americans driving a technology made in America in Massachusetts. And for the last 14 months, he has averaged 105 miles a gallon in town. And in his words, but I only get 70 on the highway. And here's how it works. It's a hybrid car on steroids. You know how these little hybrid cars work. They run on a battery at 25 miles an hour, then they flip over into fuel. This one has a booster pack that gives you 40 more miles every day of battery power, which means you can drive it to 40 miles an hour in town before you're in fuel. Once you get there, you're at 100 miles a gallon in town. Now keep in mind, half the cars in America are only driven 25 miles a day. Almost 100% of it in town. If we had these cars for everybody, a lot of people wouldn't use any gasoline at all. And 70 miles on the highway is nothing to sneeze at. Now, why do you need a president to get this car? For two reasons. First, the battery pack costs $10,000. Most people can't afford it. But in Hillary's energy plan, issued, I might add, before she met this guy, there is a tax credit of up to $10,000 that goes to anybody who buys one of these plug-in vehicles, because she figures it's worth it to liberate America from foreign oil. So you get, in other words, if these cars were available, you could buy them for no more than you pay for an ordinary car of whatever model. Second reason you need a president is we don't have enough batteries. General Motors is already looking at this technology, and believe me, if it were widely available, all the car companies would use it. But it is made from a material called lithium, most of which is still in the ground in South America. Why do you need a president? Because we have to do the research to figure out how we can quickly either secure enough of that and go to massive production of these batteries, or produce something that does the same thing with a different material. That's what you have a government research budget for. Same thing with trying to figure out how to burn coal without letting the CO2 go into the atmosphere. And Hillary has a simple view of this. When we were young people, President Kennedy told us we had to beat the Russians to the moon. Some of you of a certain age remember that. And guess what? We did it and ahead of schedule. She figures any country that could beat the world to the moon, surely to goodness could beat the world to a car battery, and she wants you to give her the chance to lead the charge. And it's a big deal. Just think what a 100-mile-a-gallon car would do for your family's budget. What else you could do with that money? How much brighter that little child and that little child's future would be if you had more disposable income. Now think what it would mean for your country. Think what we could say to all those nice people that sell us oil. We could say, go on and charge whatever you want. Shoot, charge $200 a barrel if you want. Because we're going to keep our money at home in our families' pockets and our children's future and the jobs of tomorrow, cleaning up the planet and taking control of our destiny. Very important thing. The third reason you ought to vote for it is because of the health care crisis. No president can bring this economy back for the middle class. Give poor people a chance to work their way into it and reclaim the future for our kids if we keep doubling health care costs every 7 years. Nobody can do it. Not Hillary, not Senator Obama, not Senator McCain, nobody, because you won't have any money left for anything else. Now, most of you experience the health care crisis as a big cost problem. Is that fair? Because the cost of double. Okay, all right, do a little test. Raise your hand if you know somebody without any health insurance. Look around. Look around. Now, this is a big issue in this primary. You have to decide whether you believe Hillary is right and whether you believe the American Nurses Association were right when they endorsed her for president in the primary because they had said she had the only plan that would solve this problem. There is an unbreakable connection between your cost problem and the people on whose behalf you raised your hand. And I think if you give me a minute, I can demonstrate it. First of all, there is not another wealthy country on earth where you would get this response. Not one. In every other country we're competing for the future with, they have already figured out how to provide health care to everybody at a cost that is at least 50% less than we pay. There was an article in the press last week that said that American manufacturers are spending almost $2.40 a worker an hour for health care alone, more than twice as much as any other country in the world. We can't bring the American economy back if we keep doing this. Now, if we borrowed Germany's system or Japan's or any other system and we plopped it in America, everybody would be covered, the health outcomes would be better. In rural areas, you'd have more primary and preventive care, and it would cost your country $700 billion a year less. That's the size of the trade deficit. You've got to decide if you believe this or not, or if you think we can just keep wandering around pretending that there's some unique American solution that will ignore what every other country in the world is doing. We're beating our brains out in the global economy. And the horror stories are legion. A woman came up to me in Indiana when I was appearing in a little country town in Indiana for Hillary to rally. This lady's up at the end, she's crying, and she's pushing her severely disabled child, strapped into a kind of an abbreviated pram wheelchair-like thing. It looked to me like the child had some sort of neurological problem she was born with. And she said, what am I supposed to do? I'm here for Hillary over energy and health care. I said, tell me about it. She said, my husband had a good business. He was an independent trucker. And we were proud of what we were doing. And he went bankrupt over high fuel costs. So he had to take a job as a contract truck driver. He's out driving tonight. But of course, my daughter, we can't get any health insurance because she's got a pre-existing condition. So she said, what are we supposed to do? Eat and risk our daughter's life? Or go on welfare and get her health care and starve? And this lady looked at me and she said, it has seriously been suggested to me that I should divorce my husband so that I will qualify for Medicaid and he can earn enough money for us to live with. She said, that's not in my